may decide to do what he did yesterday to Gravesh and put his Nature's Gift up on red coin. Now, if Bart noticed this, he may decide, I am going to queue as well differently, and he may well go in with a different list. He may try and get his line pockets through against that instead. And I guess we're going to find out as we have gone into game number 1.
Okay, so we do see Bart here coming in with his best blue coin list, which is going to have to be Blaze of Glory. Pajabol deciding, listen here, I'm not going to pull a little sneaky on you and play Danka on red. I am instead going to go all out here with a very strong red coin list that can give a lot of tempo when need be. And right there we see little Peppa Pig, we see the Halfling Safecracker. And we have Furco in hand as well. This is looking very good for Pajabol. Winning on even here is definitely his goal.
Yeah, most definitely. It's one of the things you want to do. The blue coin player, always trying to avoid that, especially as the Skellige player. When we managed to speak to Tailbot yesterday, running a very similar list, he said that he felt he needed to get this through, and it was strong on blue, provided you don't lose on even. Does have a nice hand with quite a few playable cards in round 1 though for Bart, so likely to take the opening play of the ship, which seems to be the traditional opening for a Skellige player in this situation.
Definitely a very nice little proactive card there, and Bart's hand not looking terrible here. Luckily he didn't do what his teammate Tailbot did yesterday when we were casting and just drawing all of his legendary cards in round 1 when they are still quite useless and something you don't want to commit. We do see Hjalmar yet, that might not find a lot of value here, but I do see that ship coming down there in the melee row. This is understandable, of course.
Yeah, and the boat comes down but chooses not to protect that ship, trying to see, okay, if you have the payday, are you willing to use it here? Paja, one of the few players who has decided to bring a payday into this tournament and for once does have it in hand. So is he going to choose to set his own engines up here and drop perhaps the Safecracker? It looks like he's going to worry about himself first instead of trying to deny that, and drops that onto the board.
Alright, so we do see that engine coming down, telling Bart exactly how many crimes are in hand. But Pajabol still in a very good position here. A lot of players sometimes have to wonder whether they want to commit a crime first or whether they first want to set up their engine, because of course if he got rid of the boat now, that Halfling Safecracker would lose 2 points essentially. One because of the first initial boost on deploy and one because of the boost after playing the crime. So Pajabol instead opting to first place his engines on the board and then committing his crimes.
Yeah, it makes sense. There's nothing that in the list in this current state that would have removed it straight away. There's no developed graveyard, nothing else that can try and remove that. So he feels pretty content to set his own engines up first. Currently he is trying to pensively think what he wants to do, possibly checking out Bart's list to see what does he possibly have access to. And we do see a Skewer Tooth drop down.
But without immunity. Now this saddens my heart greatly because that is never surviving. That's a very powerful card, and all Bart needs here is 1 card in the red before he's able to lock that with Jenga. So Dunka coming down there, normally being kept for a long round 3 to get that Bloodthirst 2 with Iced a little bit quicker, but Bart deciding to play it right now, and we see that payday coming down. Oof, what a nice trade. What a nice trade.
It really is. The Hercule left there, perhaps Bart taking the decision, okay, if you had the payday, you would have got rid of the boat. That isn't the way it went, and it turns out he did have access to it, and we see an instant jammed Blood Eagle here, potentially to develop another engine here for the damage.
Okay, now that is really nice because now we have a card in the red. That Berserker coming down there again on the Halfling Safecracker. Whether Bart commits Jenga now is yet to be seen because there are quite a bit of engines that are very strong in round 2 and 3, and you don't want those on the board for long either.
No, definitely not. I think he's likely to want to hold on to that. There are some really scary cards that removal isn't always the easiest option for. He's going to need to find some way of dealing with the boat on top of dealing with Cleaver as well. So lots of things he's going to want to deal with, and I don't imagine he's going to choose to drop that immediately here. Paja now working out what does he want to do. Does he try and protect this engine and potentially use the shakedown, or is he going to Cleaver here? No. He's going to Furco into a crime. Is he going all in and going to justice? Or is he taking something else?
He does. Okay, so he's not saving those for later. Again, Pajabol very cleverly here setting up his engine slowly but surely. Here we see another Halfling Safecracker coming out. And now we might see those crime cards coming down slowly but surely.
Definitely, and this is a signal from Paja here. He intends to push. He intends to keep going here with an attempt to win on even. And we do see that lock come down, denying the double Intimidate engine. Bart does have hand knowledge, of course. He knows there are 3 more crimes in hand based on the amount of boosts that took place. And an unfortunate ping there onto the shield.
Very unfortunate indeed. Interesting that we do see that Jenga coming down on the pig. Makes sense. He does need to win this round, but he cannot afford to lose on even, and right now Pajabol is already 1 point up. So Bart needs to pick up the pace, but he only has so many cards to do so.
Yeah, and denying that one engine really nicely there. The Bear Witcher, of course, Adrenaline was active. Denies yet another Intimidate engine. So now only 1 active on the board. Crimes are only going to play 4+1 rather than the original +4 that would have been quite scary. And he has a decent lead. 7 points of lead right now. Pasha would need to find an 8 to keep the pressure on here and stay ahead on even.
And that greatsword looking a little bit sad here, unfortunately. That's normally something you want to play early in the round so it can grow. Otherwise, you just keep it for later so that it might be procced using iced. You also want it in the graveyard though, because it gives some nice value for Hjalmar. It gives that little bit of reach that can give you an edge in a matchup. So now Pajabol needs to decide what his game plan is here. He needs to commit just a little bit.
Yeah, definitely. He has a couple of options here. He can threaten the poison on one of the taller cards, perhaps on a Jenga, and see if he can get a pass. And instead of trying to commit massive cards here, and it looks like that is the line he's going to take, it will now, there's the threat. Do you have the option or do you pass? And he takes the pass, hasn't lost on even, which he will find absolutely huge here.
Yes, now Pajabol giving Bart that option to get out of the round. Now, Pajabol has 2 decisions here. He can decide which is stronger in a long round. Often iced might just take the win there. So whether Pajabol decides to try and bleed iced out here in round 2 is yet to be seen. But Bart definitely very happy with getting out there.
Yeah, very much so. Drawn into Gord, that hasn't got a huge amount of power right now, and if Pasha can find the hand he is looking for, I would be very confident in a push, and I think he would be quite happy to push with the hand that he's got here. May take a mulligan, 1 more, yeah, looking for more crimes perhaps. Oh wow, that is a stacked hand on the other side here, so it's going to be really interesting to see how much he is willing to go and how far he is willing to push here.
Yeah, it's going to be very telling here based on what Pajabol plays. Now, of course, Jock is also a card you can commit here, but Cleaver is very telling. That normally means that the Tunnel Drill is just a few cards away. And we see Pajabol coming down there with one of his biggest cards.
Yeah, and the double spend instantly. The risk of Cleaver, it is an incredibly strong card, but it is wiped off the face of the board via Morkvarg. So Pajabol here is saying, I'm going to ensure I keep my pocket regardless, in case you instantly delete this here with your Morkvarg. And it is certainly a line, something Bart's working out right now, trying to work out, is that my best play, simply get rid of this, or do I hold that? Do I let you keep jamming, additional points into it? He decides, nope, goodbye Cleaver.
Yeah, that is a beautiful Morkvarg play that you actually love to see. It's the same with doing that against Nilfgaard's Defender, because the initial card is but very small. It's the boost that makes it bigger. And Bart, knowing very well that Pajabol doesn't have to commit his coins into a card like Sea Jackal, he can very well just transfer those coins onto the other side of the board in the form of a Tunnel Drill damage. So he might not find that Morkvarg value later on. Now was perhaps the best time to get it out of the way.
Indeed, but he does currently have a full pocket of coins. So playing the crime card potentially over profits. Dropping the drill doesn't find as much value as you'd like. You don't really expect your drill to survive for more than a turn, generally speaking. So he's now going to be thinking to himself, what do I do here? Do I drop this drill and board wipe? Or do I hold on to it? Because he doesn't want to overprofit with the Jacques. He does have first the Neuromancy though, so he can take a different line here.
Sea Jackal, I suspect. Oh no, he might be going for the 2-0 here actually. He's going for Philippa off the bat, likely going to be stealing that Raider, getting a nice 7 for 5 there. Oh, it's beautiful, it truly is. But now it's going to be interesting to see what his next line here is. Bart suddenly having to up the pace. Ice round 2 is looking better and better here with that Harold in its third form in round 3 rather. But he still doesn't have a single card in the red, which is a little bit troubling right now.
Yeah, and that can be really problematic for him, although no way of protecting anything on the board. If it does get damaged, I wouldn't be surprised if Bart leans into committing Ice a little earlier here. Maybe not straight away. He does have Blood Eagle in hand, but it is the second use of Blood Eagle, remember. So if he chooses to use it, as he has right now, he is in a position where he may not find his Harold in the next round. So he has decided, I need to find a way to generate Bloodthirst to make this iced a strong play. I will maybe drop it a little earlier and keep the card advantage rather than potentially getting bled all the way down here.
Yeah, that's the thing here, right? You never want to commit Harold in round 2 but save Ice for round 3, especially not at a short one, because the chances are that Ice might not get Bloodthirst 2 in such a short round. You might get a lot more value just committing it round 2 if you're really in a tough position like Bart here is. And Harold in his third form is simply just so much better because of those nice little warrior pings. Now, I definitely think we do see Ice coming out in this round here in order for Bart to catch up. Hjalmar still has quite a bit of reach though, but not a lot of tall units that he can get all of his value.
No, definitely not. And he does only have Bloodthirst 1 right now, so may decide it is time to drop something like the Skjordal to give him some Bloodthirst, perhaps hitting something like the Siggy in an attempt to push and play that line. Hjalmar does have a couple of decent targets in the graveyard, but removing units right now doesn't help him. He really wants to develop that Bloodthirst and stay in a strong position.
Okay, and now Pajabol's next play here is going to be very telling. Of course, he can't play Jock because he will overspend. He instead goes for the Tunnel Drill, and I believe he will now most likely board wipe.
I think he may hold on to a single point.
Oh, yes, of
he's
course.
trying to work out, is it worth the spend there? Bloodthirst on the other side doesn't hurt him. He's in a nice spot right now. He'll be very comfortable with the way this round has gone. He is up by 24 points, which is huge, but we have seen far bigger swings from Ice before.
Okay, well, he is at least on a few cards here, so he can just throw away that 6.1, very nice. And of course, do we see Juta coming out here for a nice 12 points and 5 points of damage, 17 trade. Not bad, not bad. We are now a card up, and Pajabol has to decide whether he's going to bleed out those last few cards or not.
Indeed, he will definitely have been looking to get that combo out, but is in a decent position if he chooses to commit the Jacques. He will now be trying to work out, if I commit this, it plays initially for the 12, I won't overprofit doing so, and I do have a full bank, so what has he got left? What could he have access to? Is it worth me committing here? And how many of my coins do I spend?
He does go for Jock. Yes, seeing how much he spends is going to be very telling here. Because of course, he does spend all of it. Now, Hjalmar, of course, just straight off the bat, finding a lot of value right there.
Hjalmar will find a lot of value, but he does know that if it is a Hjalmar, the top choice in deck right now is not a Greatsword, because he didn't play it. It would be a Bear Witcher, which would only be an 11-point swing, not the 13 that he needs. Banking on that not being a possibility, and Paja is saying, I do not need to spend more. I don't feel there is a card that can do this for you in one.
That is very true here. Bart also doing a little bit of calculations. He's going to have to spend Hjalmar. He instead first goes for his War of Clans. That is not enough yet, and Hjalmar is going to drop second. Doesn't really matter what he takes here. It does a little bit, seeing that he still has Harold, and Harold needs access to a warrior of his own. And we see them both going through to a short round 3, exactly the way we anticipated it would. Bart still having access to Harold in its third form. Question is, will he draw it with no Blood Eagle?
And that is the big question, because ultimately if you miss it, it's really scary. As you say, second Blood Eagle has gone. There is a second Nero. Doesn't matter. It's top deck and potentially wreck at this stage. That is not a terrible set of cards. If you are Bart here, Paja's not looking exactly how he would want them for sure.
No, this is looking really good for Bart here, exceptionally good. It just goes to show that Ice isn't always a short round 3 finisher. It doesn't have to be. It really does depend how you how you go into the game and what you're planning on taking further. Now, Pajabol playing that swindle, it gives him 6 points. Well, 5 and then 1 for his leader. Not a great swindle, to be honest. Not too great. A bit of bad gambling there going on. Not too successful.
Now, Paja does have a really interesting line here because he can choose, he's just going to deny as much value as he can. Of course, the boat does jump out and he just has a pocket full of coins. Normally, you would look at this and think, this is a great situation, I'm 16 up. The gore definitely won't be enough, but with a full pocket, a Neuromancy...
Sea Jackal.
That is the one. I think Sea Jackal may be enough.
Oh my dear goodness, a small bronze card here in the Horde ability range, and of course he is going to be using those leader coins, so he's constantly on 7 and he takes it with coins to spare. Pajabol taking the first game and Bart not getting his Iceless through on blue. That puts him in a tough position here, and it's certainly not one you want to be in.
Definitely not. He does have a couple of shots at blue coin, of course, but Paja will feel really comfortable. Winning the first game of that series is vital, and it shows, there you go, it is an unconditional 20 for 4. I cannot wait to read it. The Sea Jackal coming in clutch there. Having access to that Anero turns out to be vital, and being able to deny a lot of the damage points there that would have been available had he played with units on the board. So it's really interesting to see how these players are going to go now. It is going to be quite the lineup, and Bart now trying to come from a game behind, but is going in on red coin this time. So he will have a couple of options and will be deciding perhaps what he wants to pick. Paja going in on blue also knows that his best choice is likely to be his Skellige list as well. So is he just going to directly queue that now or try and take a different option?
Well, Pajabol going here on blue with ice means Bart has the option of picking his line pocketless or imprisonment. He does decide to do the exact same matchup here, going with his line pocketless for now. Let's see if the results are the same or whether the way the players tackle this differs, because these lists do not look the same, as we already have both Horsan Jr. and Senior in hand. Ironically, not a good matchup here for Horsan Jr. because he will not have his deployed ability if Pajabol doesn't have a single boosted card, and this Skellige list simply doesn't.
No, it doesn't, and you may see him hold that here because, of course, Paja's stratagem does play into boost. It will probably be the only thing that does happen here, so the most likely use of it is going to be in round 1, and it's probably why we see Paja not choose to use that just yet. He will hold on to that as long as possible, but I do also see both safecrackers in hand on the other side, but only 2 crimes. This feels like a mirror of the game from Gravesh yesterday. It's so similar. That is a small one. You can see Paja's face right there going, ooh, that's interesting. A nice hand read there for him, so a little bit of information gleaned there about Bart's hand state.
Pajabol having some flashbacks there. It did not go well for Gravesh yesterday. Unfortunately, he just kept drawing the wrong cards at the wrong time. And yes, Bart not in a great position here to try and win on even. We'll see what his choice is. That Halfling Safecracker also a little bit awkward, as Novigradian Justice will be bricked later on.
Yeah, quite possibly in that list, which is one of the reasons maybe he decides not to play the second Safecracker here. He's as likely to try and develop as much coin carryover as he wants and run away. And we do see a first Blood Eagle come down.
Alright, and we see that Marauder quickly taking care of that small little engine. Bart likely deciding here, I am not going to commit another Halfling Safecracker. It's going to find much more value later on, and thinning it out of the deck now is simply not something I want to do. Whether he goes into this round is still something we have yet to see. He could commit some of his crime cards, potentially, maybe throw away a Spindle, get that Flying Redanian out of the deck, therefore thinning a bit. But I suspect he won't go too deep into this round, which is very unfortunate for him, especially on red, unless he decides to completely overcommit here and play something like Cleaver. But that's also not something you really want to see if you're Bart.
Yeah, but it's not the ideal play at all. He would have hoped he would have been able to pressure this matchup a little bit more on this coin. You saw Paja there decide to delete the engine, even though it was quite small. The On-Crate Marauder coming out, only getting 2 of the 3 damage, but feels the value is completely worth it. And we do see the swindle coming down. You get the 5 coins from the swindle there, which is, I believe, the lowest roll it can get. It can trade between 5 and 7 coins, depending on how many Crown Splitters are on the board there, but just gets the 5 in that situation, so Pasha can just respond with another bronze card for carryover, effectively.
Yeah, again, that swindler is having a little bit of bad luck today at work, not doing his job very well of stealing money from other people. Bart here having to decide, yes, it is exactly as I thought, dipping the Poncher coming out, getting that Flying Redanian. Now is as good a time as any to pass, really. Depends whether he wants to keep Furco for later as a tutor or whether he decides to thin the deck a little bit more. Problem is you can't really play another crime card now without overspending, and that's also not something you really want to do. But we do see that spender coming out first, and perhaps we see him use it at least once to save it. He goes for 2.
Yeah, the double spend there to put a little bit more pressure on and say, I'm still in this round, I still have a decent chunk to fight. Of course, Pasha knows there are no crimes left in hand, but will potentially expect a Furco. He's still not using his stratagem in the hope of playing around potentially that Whoreson Jr., which is obviously only going to find value in this round here for him. So now he's trying to work out what he wants to do. He doesn't want to commit too many of his damage engines straight off the bat. Certainly not going to play that Bear Witcher just yet, I would imagine, before Adrenaline hits, and may just play as low commitment as possible. Perhaps the On-Crate Warrior, just drop a little bit of bleeding out, but there's always the risk. If you play too slowly on blue coin, especially when he's worried about committing that stratagem, you don't want to risk ending up losing on even. It's a real risk.
It certainly is, but luckily Skellige has a lot of tempo here, and with bronze cards alone, you can quite easily defend a bleed. He gives it to the ship, who has 1 armor, meaning it will now be damaged with 5 if Bart decides to commit his Whoreson Jr., which is very likely the only correct play, as it will never find value again.
Indeed. Now, he did look very excited when he saw that the stratagem be used. I think there was a little clap there. Does give the Furco and is going for some value here, trying to get the coins. Interesting choice there, offering a pass. Interesting, he is offering him a pass here, saying, I'm going to play this, threatening even, maybe I don't have the junior, because you think he would have snapped that there, which is a really interesting choice, as it is really the only time it's going to find huge value here. So, offering the pass up, Bart saying, I'll take the round control, let's see what happens.
Alright, Pajabol's certainly not necessarily going to take the pass like Bart did. I mean, it didn't work out for him earlier, and Paja may be trying to learn from the mistake there. I am very keen to see that premium Whoreson Jr. jump on the board, though. Such a beautiful card. Interestingly enough, Whoreson Senior not premiumed. I mean, I feel like this is very telling.
No, both. I can see both moving. I can see both moving, just very slowly, I believe.
My screen might be bugging. We'll see if when that is being played. Still curious to see when. Oh, Pajabol taking the pass. Pajabol taking the pass. All right, so he feels he's confident there. On a bleed as well as a long round 3. Okay, it is indeed moving beautiful, not as telling as I thought. Both of them equally great. It is very nice seeing these players have their cards premiumed, as they can indeed afford all of that premium powder with their portion of the prize pools. And we see Pajabol here with a card up going into the next round.
We do, and no shock to see that Safecracker disappear again. A limit on coins, but does draw into Justice, which is nice, and we watch Harold get mulliganed away here. It doesn't surprise me. He's expecting to be bled, and is going to expect to be tried to be pushed, and you really do want to save that Harold for that short round 3. We don't have any sign of iced either, though, and the Blood Eagle is the second Blood Eagle for Pajabol, so perhaps not quite as well equipped to deal with this push.
Yeah, we see that exact same play here from the previous match. Going into Cleaver first, spending twice, doesn't spend a third time. We see Morphle coming down exactly the same way, dealing with Cleaver right off the bat. The only problem here is Paja doesn't have Iced in hand, and like you said, that could just be a big problem here, because it might very well come down to something like that.
It might, but on the other side, there is no drill, although there is first a Neuromancy on the other side for Bart. I feel like we've cast this game once already, and it is incredible that you can see the lines, obviously, and I wonder how much it feeds into the player's mind, having played the reverse of this, knowing they have access to the same tools, thinking, okay, oh, that just happened. I wonder how much of that affects it, because from Paja's side, he's going to be thinking, this exact line just happened, and it didn't work out for the player, so what can I do differently?
It is worth noting again that Bart doesn't have the same cards that Pajabol had. He has Horson Jr. in hand, which right now doesn't find a lot of value. I believe in a previous tournament today, when Flake and Chunmiri were still casting, we saw a Horson Senior trading, turning a 5-point card into a 4 there, which was quite an awkward move, but hey, you still give that cute-up Lackey a little bit of extra power there with all of those crimes. We see that card coming down there, the Halfling Safecracker, not getting a single boost, which is never good to see. A little bit sad there.
Yeah, definitely. And again, gives hand information to Pajabol. He will know there are no crimes. He will know Furco has also been and gone. So we'll be pretty content to know, okay, I see what's happening there. I know how that card works. And I'm pretty happy that there are no crimes in hand. Perhaps that is just Horson's target then. Maybe that is Horson Senior coming down, trying to trade slightly up. Maybe an option. But also, no crime cards again. So the Intimidate engine it creates really not going to be that great.
Pajabol putting his raiding fleet bleed there on a Cleaver's Muscles, who has a shield. That's quite an interesting play there, because we are going to be losing 1 point. Perhaps setting up his Bloodthirst. I'm not sure what the point of that was, but he definitely did it on purpose. Maybe he thinks he might find a bigger target later with the Halfling Safecracker, but of course we know there aren't any crimes in hand at the moment.
Yeah, I think it makes sense to try and bleed that shield off and find some value for the Bloodthirst. Knowing that there are no crimes, the Safecracker isn't going to grow, which would normally be an issue. So it's not something he has to worry about, and all of a sudden, he is a simple card away from developing Bloodthirst 2 nice and quickly.
It is also true that the Halfling Safecracker without any crimes would eventually have died, so that might have taken away that Bloodthirst potential for Ice, as Pajabol does have more cards in hand and could have waited a solid 4 turns, but we see that Philippa coming down there, stealing that boat. Not good for Pajabol.
No, that is a really, really nice Philippa. Although, of course, it isn't quite as good potentially as the Herkia would have been, so now Philippa is spent, Paja is going to be thinking here, what is my next line? That boat is going to ping everything I play, and it is frustrating, but doesn't have a direct answer to it. Doesn't have access to the Gutting Slash in hand, and did use Vabiorn already to raiding fleet and pull out the ship that has been stolen by Philippa. He's also got to bear in mind the distance. Obviously, he always does potentially have the leader to use if he wants to, but we know there is a pairing plan there with the Iced, so decides to drop his other engine onto the board with Herkia, knowing that there are no crimes. Normally, you'd expect to use this because it might just die, but with Philippa gone, and the hand knowledge that, you know what, there is no crime in hand, it's a simple play.
And we see that Horson Senior coming down here, actually finding some very nice value, because the card had bleeding and would be in the raid for Ice later on. Now, if Bart does decide to take a crime card here with Oneiromancy, that cute up Lucky will at least go off once, damaging a card with 1 point. It's not a lot because of the lack of crimes, but Horson Senior is still an Intimidate engine. So technically he will get 2 extra points if he decides to play a crime card.
He will indeed. Now, the denial of that Bloodthirst is not insignificant at all. It's a really nice use of that card, because there really isn't much, well, there's no Bloodthirst on the other side of the board right now, until, of course, Herkia decides to sniper ping, missing those shields and the armor, which will feel really nice for Pajabol. The hand on the other side is a little awkward for Bart, though, because he has a Kurt, nothing he really wants to purify, and a Gord he doesn't want to play. Grabbing something like the Drill with minimal coins never feels good.
No, certainly not. And instead we see that crime card coming down, likely on Herkia indeed. And we see that Intimidate going off, as well as the cute up Lackey doing his job. Man, I remember when Congregate was still meta, and this was quite terrifying to see, especially when those cute up Lackeys were bonded and did twice the damage. You had to deal with them quite quickly, or else you were doomed.
You really, really did. Now, there is a single damage on the board for Bart. He has one damaged unit, and Paya has the option of damaging a second. This may well end up being the turn that he decides to Blood Eagle, grab his Iced, and go full leader here to try and get that swing. Because he is currently 21 points behind. With everything he has the access to, this may be the turn he has to make that decision. He's probably weighing that up now as the rope goes closer. It's a lot of things that need to happen for him to do it, so he certainly needs to make that decision pretty quickly here.
Oh no, tick-tock, tick-tock, and we see that Bear Witcher coming down. We now have 2 cards in the red. We're still holding on to that Raider damage, and I think it's very likely that we might see that Blood Eagle coming down then. The thing is just that you don't want to take out one of your red cards with the Blood Eagle and take away that Bloodthirst too in the same turn. So now, if things go well for him, which it will, he just doesn't know it yet. Okay, I think this is exactly what we're going to be seeing now. That Iced is going to come out. Unless he decides to go card down, which I very much doubt.
And that's a line he's going to be working on now. I don't think he can afford to either way. The 2 bronze cards in his hand, neither of them are going to trade for enough. Even together, they aren't going to trade for enough to catch up because he needs 16 points here, 14 because of the 2 on board. He's now going to be working out, could he take a Blood Eagle into something else and potentially save Iced Leader? Or is it worth just committing those things right now? Looking at the bank on the other side, there are only 2 charges and no carryover going in, as well as minimal in the way. In fact, 0 Crown Splitter pockets left. So he will know what is left in the list on the other side and has decided to go.
Now this is an interesting play. It has also happened in the past where players decide to use their leader ability without Iced. A very odd play, but Pajabol, of course, being very experienced, knows what he's doing. He is instead going to hold on to most of his cards, I suspect. Goes with Skjordal, get 8 points of damage, but now he is a card down. I don't know how he feels about this.
I mean, he's done the math, he's worked that out, and he's decided holding leader and trying to draw into into his leader potentially. If he can find Iced and pair that with the leader, it'll be fantastic. If he can find Iced and Harold from his draws, I think he will be very, very content, knowing that the drill isn't going to do him any favours. Does find Jutta as the first card, so can mulligan it straight away, and has one of the 2 Skellige big boys.
Okay, now this is getting spicy. Keep in mind that he has put his Gutting Slash back in the deck, meaning if he decides to play Ice last, that might just be the card that we accidentally get. RNG should be on our side, we will see. Okay, now with Harold in his 3rd form, these pings might be worth quite a bit. Bart there, going to want to be playing uninteractive for as long as possible, but unfortunately Harold is going to be veiled. The warrior he pulls out won't be though, and I suspect that the Fist Stick might be the first card that Bart decides to commit, therefore not giving Pajabol any of the value he so desperately needs.
Yeah, and I think that's definitely the line he has to go along here, trying to... all of the specials, of course, will pile onto the gourd. I believe the gourd right now is a 10. By the time it is played, it is potentially a 13. And we do see, as you correctly call there, the poison coming down, and he's just going to stay as uninteractive as possible. Because if you can avoid putting any units on the board and do exactly what Paja did to him, the Iced will find almost no value. The leader ability going to trade and lose half of its value if there is nothing on the board.
Yeah, this is starting to look very scary here, but even if Ice doesn't find Bloodthirst 2, he still has access to Jutta, which is still significant combined with your leader ability, because at least it's a solid 12-point unit on your side of the board. You can't ignore that, but Bart here might just poison that card and stay uninteractive, making Pajabol's life just a little bit more difficult.
Most definitely, and I do think that Iced here has to be the next play. As you pointed out, he could draw into the Gutting Slash that went back, but the only unit left in deck is Jutta. There is only a Jutta left, so it's a really risky draw here if he doesn't play, and he goes the other way with it, saying, you know what, I don't mind what I draw. This could end up quite badly, though, because if it is Jutta that he draws into with the Iced, it will jump on the board, and the leader will effectively trade for 0.
I'm very curious to see how this one plays out. I'm wondering what Bart is going to be pulling. with that Neuromancy. So he's going to go for another crime card. That's exactly what he does. Remaining uninteractive, denying all of that points to Pajabol. That's not something you want to see. This is looking horrible for Pajabol right now. I think Bart might just take it by remaining uninteractive. Let's see how this plays out.
It's going to be very, very close here because there is a spender, of course. There is a drill. It's 29 points and it's huge. There is a pocket full. And he has the option of playing Gord first with the double lassé to give him a bigger pocket. So those coins are going to trade at 2 for 2. And in spite of the best efforts, he's decided he wanted access to everything he could find. I think, if I'm not mistaken, there are just enough coins in the bank here as we wait for that drill to come down.
Well, that drill's going to find...
He's played it on the wrong row here. He's played that on the front row.
No.
Is it actually enough, or is that a huge throw? Oh my lord.
Bart. Oh no. What did you do? He is going to get 1 point of damage now.
Paja is
for
laughing.
every 2 points. He misplayed. He misplayed.
It's not enough. And Paja
he would have taken the game. Bart had it in his hands.
Now this is going to be huge for Bart to try and come back from. Paja there. I think that Paja initially thought, well, that's a little bit of a BM before both of them realised, oh my, now that was definitely not the plan here. Bart has picked the wrong row and has ended up throwing that game. He is now 2-0 down and trying to come back from that, not just literally, but mentally. He now has to try and reverse sweep Pajabol on the back of a game entirely thrown. That is huge. That is absolutely huge.
I mean, that's incredibly weird to see, and obviously not done on purpose there. For a second, I thought he did the calculations like the pros always do, decided it's not enough, I'm just going to throw it away. But that's clearly not the case here. He misplayed. Wow. I mean, again, people don't realize how stressful these sort of events are, and players make mistakes in the heat of the moment. It's really something that happens more than you'd like to admit. And like you said, Pajabol here getting his Scalaga list through on blue, and now he is left with his Nature's Gift list, I believe.
He has 3 shots with Nature's Gift here. Bart, of course, as we've spoken about this before, being 2-0 down is bad, but it also means you have 3 shots at beating a list. You get to cherry pick your coin, and you get to cherry pick your matchup. There is no more 5-head plays here. So Bart has to now recompose himself as quickly as he can, take a breath, have a sip of water and go, okay, that was ridiculous. Let's move on here and let's make the best of this. He has 3 shots at beating this list, a list that very few people have brought. So he is now going to try and pick his absolute best matchups. May well decide, going from the opposite side now, you know what? I'm just going to take my Syndicate here and try and take that matchup. He's going to want the Nilfgaard on red, I would imagine, and try and take Blaze of Glory through the other way as well. I think he's going to take a minute or so to recompose himself here.
I think that is very necessary, and we'll give him all the time he needs. He might also just do a forever YOLO, put on that music and start dancing away to calm the nerves. Hey, sometimes it works. Bart not looking happy there. Pajabol now only need to bring through his Nature's Gift list, and he is very experienced with this list. Bart deciding he's going to take his Syndicate list on blue. He's not prepared to go for Scalaga again. Bart giving a sneaky little smile there. It's going to give him sleepless nights, I can assure you.
You can imagine it is a difficult situation. Paja now with 2 shots at red coin and 1 on blue with this gift list going in. He will feel in a great spot, but the pro that he is not going to assume that this is dead and buried just yet. Bart, a very, very strong player, and we have seen people come back. We saw a reverse sweep yesterday from Forever YOLO, so it is by no means over just yet. We do see Bart decide to mulligan that drill away here, and the big thing for him will be, obviously, as always, get out of the round. Oh, and that last mulligan is sad for him, though. He draws into the other halfling safecracker.
That's never something you want to see, because you always need to pull it up with your Nova Gradient Justice, or that card will be bricked. Pajabol getting out his Dunka round 1. I do not see that surviving for very long, but Bart, I don't believe, has payday. He instead opting for a bloody good fun, I think.
Yeah, bloody good fun and a single spend there. It's quite a versatile card. Sometimes that works for it, sometimes that works against it. Although Paja knows it is an open deck list. Interesting that he has chosen not to lead a click there. Has decided to say, I know you don't have any more options. Once that bloody good fun has gone, I know that you are not running any 4P removal. There is no assault in your list. There are no paydays in your list. I can literally hold this and take my time. A really nice position to be in.
Yeah, and interestingly enough, he does run Horsan Junior as well, Senior, remember. So if the moment he gave that a single boost, it is in Horsan Junior destroy value right there. And instead, we do see Circle of Life coming there. Pajabol perhaps putting his Hamadryad on the board merely for that extra Symbiosis point, which cannot be ignored. Quite powerful if you have a lot of Symbiosis units on the board at the same time. Now, Bart doesn't have access to his Horsan Jr. anyway, but Pajabol doesn't know this. He will likely be using his leader charges the moment his defender is on the board.
Yeah, quite possibly, and I think he's currently looking at this and almost playing for carryover. He doesn't need to worry too much about tempo. He can try and get as much of his hand buffed as possible. Bart doing something similar, but having to commit a little more. Full pocket in the board, now has the boat on it as well. He now has the choice, what do I do here? How far do I go and how much do I have to spend to get out? Paja in a really nice spot here on red.
Yeah, the thing about Nature's Gift is it has significant tempo options and you hardly have to commit a single thing. Though in a short round you are even stronger, and a long round is also deadly with cards like Gezras as well as Ipne and all of those Symbiosis tokens popping up all the time. Bart here not having a lot of options left in his hand. If he wants to commit, he can commit Philippa at some point. Though right now he's not going to find a lot of tall units to steal. He is ahead though for now, but Pajabol easily can catch up. It is in his range to do so.
It is, and at the moment he's trying to work out, do I need to spend again to try and encourage you to pass here? And that's what he does. He decides to spend 4 coins that on red coin he may not have done, but ultimately needs to ensure there's a decent amount of reach here so that he doesn't end up getting pushed, so that he at least doesn't lose on even. Trying to find an extra 20 points, more than 20 points here would be really challenging for Paja in a single card, and I think that's the reason he's chose to double spend here. Hopefully he can he's now looking at himself, he's trying to refocus, I think, Bart here after the last game.
Yeah, Pajabol definitely doing some calculations there. He's trying to figure out whether he can catch up in 2 cards if necessary. He does go for that Dryad's Caress, thereby making sure Hamadryad is out of Horsan Jr. range there. Still, it would have found some value, but it's definitely going to find some value later. Don't fret. Now, Bart in the position where he decides it's finally time to pass. Pajabol, you now have to show me what you have and whether you can truly catch up with 1 card.
Yeah, and the leader charges are available, as you pointed out earlier. Not having access to Junior will feel really sad there, because a 9-point Hamadryad with Vitality on it would be a lovely target for him. Comes down and does the 6 damage, spends the 3 coins and simply deletes that. So will feel bad for Bart, but does also mean he has access to it later, so won't feel too bad. The defender, for instance, now that it has gained some hand buff, will also be a viable target, so just meant he didn't have to overcommit. Paja now sat looking and thinking, how do I play this? And decides to take the leader and a single leader charge as well with the defender.
Okay, that hurts a little bit to see, because that defender definitely is a very strong card. I mean, to be fair, it could, if it could simply have been Philippad later on, but now something like a Pavko might not survive as long as you'd like it to.
No, most definitely. And if the defender is there and the defender has to eat the Philippa, it means things like Gezras do not. And that's huge, because Gezras in this matchup is great, unless, of course, it gets stolen from you, in which case it is actually your nemesis and quite scary here. It's quite a good hand, potentially, if he's looking to resist a bleed. It'll depend, and Paja is going straight in. He is not messing around. He is instantly dropping down that Pyrotechnician, a strong, proactive card that is really frustrating if you're trying to develop an engine.
It certainly is. It's a very nice little deterrent right there. Whatever card you play now, it's going to be damaged by 4, so don't play anything you value too much. If you're going to commit to Sea Jackal, then I'm going to use this, perhaps even use a Forest Protector and get rid of it entirely. Bart now here having to decide what he's willing to play. Novigradian Justice, definitely not something you can play right now without a Crown Split or Dwarf on the board. His poisons are not going to find value either, because he only has 2, and with that little Dryad's Caress right there in Pajabol's hand, neither of them will be able to take out a unit, so they will merely be generating some coins for Bart.
They will, and this is a really unfortunate hand for Bart here, as you say. The Gourd right now is the only way to get Nova Gradient Justice to work, but the Gourd currently sitting at 8 points, not the Gourd we're looking for sure. That is a small Gourd. It may end up having to be played, and he just drops the poison to boost that up a little, threaten the poison, but also offer the pass, saying to Paja, do you want to get out? Are you going to use a Purify on this Pyrotech?
Yeah, Bart perhaps baiting, right? Pajabol doesn't know if he actually has access to another poison right now. We do see that Falv dropping. What nature card do we see? Are we going to give it Veil is the question.
I would imagine so. It certainly seems like the sensible line. Deny that follow-through poison, and knows ultimately... No, he doesn't. He says, come on, poison me. I'm going to go max value. Wow. Saying, I don't believe you have it. You only have 2 poisons. Show me the poison.
Well, ironically, this is the best chance Bart is going to get in finding poison value, but instead he gets significant value there with Philippa. My goodness, right there, 18 points plus Philippa, which is 21, as well as 4 vitality. That's 25 points right there. What a bunch of points for Bart. Now he is ahead again. Pajabol finally getting a chance to purify that Pyrotechnician. And now the poison will definitely not find any other value. Instead, it will merely get some coins.
It will, but coins do trade above their normal value in this list, of course. Not insignificant to notice as well that those tree ants have all spawned in what you would argue is the correct row for Pajabol if he decides to push harder and harder here, because they are spawning in the row that the Gezrus will boost. So this is not over by any means just yet.
Certainly not, though. Pajabol is going here into commitment territory. Now, Pauli not finding much value. Not that it mattered too much. He instead goes for Gezras right off the bat. We already have it at Adrenaline 3. And Pajabol not getting that much value. It's going to give him 3 points now and a little bit more later. Bart hasn't played into the melee row, which makes sense. So Gezra's only finding some value there on the range row.
Yeah, indeed. And obviously you saw Paja there quickly taking a look, I'm guessing trying to work out what is left in the deck list. Philippa is gone. My Gezrus is not going to be stolen now, so having to use that. He's now going to be looking, what other removal do you have? Do you have any other access? And the answer quite simply is no, which is why he has decided this is the time I'm going to play it. I know you can't transition this poison, can't do any more, and the Gourd does come down here.
That is some commitment there on Bart's end. Pajabol might be happy with that trade. And he's certainly not going to boost Gezras, by the way, because that immediately puts it again in Horsan Jr. territory, meaning it can be taken out. Pauli first being used there to get that extra little bit of points from Gord in the melee row. Gezras doing its thing. Bart finally deciding it's time to play my Halfling Safecracker with Nova Gradient Justice. At least he can now with Gord being on the board, getting that full value, though he doesn't have any crime cards left in hand. So a small
that's fine.
Halfling
I can indeed. You've got the issue here. You can see he's decided.